Hey guys, Kirk here, and thank you for joining me on a new video on the channel. In this week's video we're going to be building our master material layer, and essentially what I mean by that is we're going to build the parent of our material layers. So every time we want to create a new material layer to paint onto our landscape or use for multiple cases, let's just say on a landscape shader, we can essentially just come to our master material, duplicate it, and then what we're essentially doing is making a child of our master, and then we can have multiple different layers, like you have mud, heavy mud, grass. You may have material layers of a few variations of grass, wetness, puddles, and all that good stuff, and rock and dirt, and I'm sure I've already mentioned dirt, but never mind. But essentially, like I said, what we're doing is building that master layer up, and we can come and grab a duplicate of that master layer and create a child instance of that material layer, or master layer if you like. Later down the line there may be something in your material layers that you're thinking, it'd be nice if this was like this, or I change these normal settings or something on the albedo, I don't know. But essentially what you could do is come to your master material layer, make a couple of changes what you want, and it then will affect all of your material layers that have derived from your master layer. Or you could go into each individual layer and change what you want for that particular layer. It's quite a powerful aspect of building a game world landscape shader. So yeah, I feel, because it's going to be a fairly long video, this one, so bear with me, but by the end of this you'll have some decent material layers in which you could paint onto your landscape, which is great. Okay, so before we get started, I do want to thank everyone who's donated. You can see them on screen here. I really do appreciate the donations. It's going a long way for me to save up and get new gear to better record for you guys, because my gear's not great at the minute. I mean, just like a new microphone and things like that, and one of the big stands that hold up your microphone. That's why you hear in my videos a lot of tippy tapping, because my microphone's quite close to my keyboard. And yes, you will hear that in today's video, or this week's video. But yeah, so that's great. So thank you to everyone who has donated, who has subscribed, and who has liked my videos. I really do appreciate it. And actually thank you to the guys, and well, girls as well, who have challenged my videos. I really do appreciate that, and it gives me a lot of thinking to do when creating videos for you guys. So yeah, let's get started. First things first, what I am going to do is I am going to remove 3/4 of our landscape. For this particular video we don't need all this landscape that you can see on screen here, so I'm just going to remove it. As you can see, I'm here with money. And this is all we need. I just want to use this flat area, this flat grounds, to indicate a little bit later on. Where's money? There you are. Well, if I press 1 on the keyboard, it'll put me back to my bookmark. So to remove these bits of landscape that I don't want, I've come to the world partition window here, the bottom right. I've gone through this in previous videos. Essentially, you can see my little triangle here. This is the bit of landscape where I am here. So what I want to do is to maybe drag over this area all the way down, right click and unload selected regions. It's unloaded everything, oh wait there, yeah, I know why. So if I right click here and load selected regions, essentially what I've just done there, guys, is just remove the entire landscape. I don't think I need that much, but I'll tell you what, that'll do. It'll be alright. Okay, essentially what this is doing now, it's going to allow us a bit more performance in our engine, because it's not having to render out the rest of our landscape. So yeah. In last week's video we created this, where we talked about distance tiling and changing the UVs for our distance tiling. If I open this up, if you've not watched the video yet, we created the distant mask in last week's video. We created this in the first video, and now we've got our distant mask. And essentially what I want to do, like I say, is to make a material master layer. So I'm going to come to my content drawer. I've already got the folder here, which I created a few videos back. It's called Layers and my master. So what I want to do is come into my master folder. I'm going to right click, I'm going to find the materials tab, and I'm going to go over to the material instance. What should we call this? We're going to go MF for master function, or material function if you like. And we're going to call this master, what should we call it? Layer. Yeah, we'll do that. Just call it master layer. And then we're going to keep it highlighted. I'm going to go left control and D and duplicate that. Hang on a hot second. That's a material instance. Such a sausage, aren't I? So I'm going to right click, go to materials, and we want a material function, not a material instance. Okay, so MF for material function underscore master underscore layer. Right, so and now we've got a master material function. And then I'm going to go left control and D and duplicate it. I'm going to press the right arrow to get to the end. Where it says layer, I'm going to delete the one underscore logic. Right, so. And then what I am going to do is open our logic side of things. Hang on a minute, I've pressed a couple of buttons and my mouse has actually slowed down. Don't like that. Okay, so we've got our master layer logic function open, and this is where all our logic's going to go. So essentially we've got our status bar at the bottom. We don't need that, so you can come up to the top and press the status button. I'm going to move that in ever so much, and then we are all here and ready to rock. So in this landscape shader, what I'm going to be using is an albedo texture. I'm going to use a roughness texture, a normal texture, and a height texture. The height texture is just going to be to help blend in the future. I'm going to save this now. Right, so it's going to enable us to blend the layers together a little bit better in the future down the line when we create our landscape shader even more. Okay, so the distant tiling function I want to come and get. And as you can see here, we've got our distant mask. Essentially just going to click and hold and drag it in. And now we've got our distant mask in here. The good thing about material functions, guys, is that I can use this multiple times. Like I opened it up before and shown this before. I can use this multiple times, which is great. So I want one for my albedo. I'm going to duplicate it, left control and D. I'm going to do one for my roughness. One's going to be for my normal. And one is going to be for the height. And I'm actually going to duplicate it again. Now what you can see here, when you first drag in a material function, you get this little indication in brackets here about brackets of what type of input that is. As you can see, it's a vector 2 input, and that's the texture 2D input. You can see on these other ones that that's not showcasing there, and that's essentially, I don't know why this happens. It's always happened, but I don't know why. I'm just going to be completely honest. So I'm going to duplicate it one more and delete that one. And now they're all looking very nice. I'm going to highlight them all, shift and A to align, and we're all set and ready to go. I do like to make sure these are aligned properly, guys. Like so. That's pretty much one square. Like so. Okay, so there our distant mask is in, ready to rock. Okay, so what I want to do now is to create our inputs for these particular textures. So this first input I'm going to drag off here, and it's going to open up our search box, and in here we can search for any kind of logic or node in our node library, if you like. And what I want is a input function or function input, and you can see it automatically sets it to a 2D. That's normal, and that is good. So what I'm going to put in here is how should we name this? It's quite important to name these correctly at this stage. What I'm going to go for is material albedo texture. Just like that. Like I stated at the beginning of the video, guys, I apologise for the tippy tappy. That's because my microphone is ever so close. Okay, so now we've got our material albedo texture. I'm just going to simply... No, I was thinking about duplicating that, but I'm not going to duplicate it. I'm going to drag off the next one and get another function input. And I'm going to change this name to material. You'll notice on all the inputs that we create today, the function inputs, that I am going to put them as material. The reason for that is because down the line, when you come to create a new material layer, you can essentially grab this master material layer and it'll have material albedo texture, material roughness texture, normal texture, and so on and so on. And when you create that new one, you can right click and create a scalar parameter, and all you have to do is think of the word that you want, say dirt or mud or puddles, grass, wetness, whatever, and you can just replace material with wetness or whatever you want that material layer to be. But I'll showcase that a little bit later on. So material roughness texture. Like so. Okay, so now we've set that one up. We want one for normal as well, so function input and then normal. You will find, guys, that this is quite tedious, a lot of this, but it saves a lot of work in the future. Oh wait there, material, normal, texture. Right, so we're going to create a new one. This is going to be our height, so function input, and then we're going to go material, height, texture. So outside this function, I want to organize these a little bit. I have done this in previous videos on this series, but for the viewers who have not been here before, this is how we're going to do this. So essentially what I'm going to do is grab this, Control and D, and just duplicate it. And I'm going to rename this to 1, 2, 3, 4 dashes, and then we're going to put textures. I'll do it all in capitals actually. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. So essentially what this, the reason I'm doing this is just to set a priority in outside of this material function, so I can have all my texture inputs together, my UV inputs together, and my options. So what I'm going to do with this now, I'm going to leave it at a set priority of 0. We'll start at 0 with this. We don't need to use this as a preview value. And then I'm just going to press enter. Right, so I'm going to drag this up here. And so now this starts at 0. This is going to be right at the top of our material function outside of here. And what I mean by that is, like you can see here, our texture inputs right at the top. This will be 0, 1, 2, and 3. So that's essentially what I want to do here. So we're starting at 0 here. With the albedo, I'm going to change the set priority to 1. The roughness texture is going to be 2. The normal texture is going to be 3, and the height texture is going to be a set priority of 4. Now all these are together. So I could drag this up here. I'm going to drag this up here. Drag this up here. I'm going to get them all up here. I'm going to organise this a little bit. I'm going to drag them all, or grab them all, sorry. Shift and A, align them. I'm going to move in a little bit closer. I want to make them look a little bit neater. Like so. Okay. So these inputs will get errors with this once we, put the outputs out. We'll get errors. So I'm going to get what's called a texture object. So I'm going to right click and just type texture. And let's see if we go up here, you can see it, a texture object. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to turn caps lock off. And now we have a texture object, and this will need to go in here. We're going to leave that texture in there, but I'm going to duplicate it 3 more times. I'm just going to put that into this preview, like so. Brilliant. We'll close these down, collapse them. As you can see, I do like to be neat and tidy, guys. Returning viewers will know this. Do that, do that. Okay, so there's our texture objects, all neat and tidy in there. We'll grab them all, press C on the keyboard, and we're just going to call these textures. Right, so I'm going to change the font to around 25 and give it a random colour, like so. Okay, so that's our textures. Don't want to do that. We can move that about now. And that's the reason we're commenting. A good reason to comment them out. You can clearly see what they are, and we can move them all at the same time. Okay, so that's our texture inputs done. What I need to do now is to sort out our UVs. So I need inputs for all of these. So I'm going to drag off the distance UVs far, get a function input. Like so, you can see it's created a vector2 input type. And then what I'm going to call this is, we're going to start with material again. Yeah, we'll use distance. UVs. We'll put in brackets here. Far. We'll do all capitals for the far. Like so. So now we've done that, we can actually just duplicate this straight away because the wording is right on the edge. So I'm just going to duplicate this 2 more times. We click on this middle one, and I want one for mid. Highlight all of that and delete it. Some brackets and then mid brackets again. Then we'll do the same for this one. Well, it's not going to be called mid, it's going to be called near. Like so. Okay, so we've got some UVs, we can plug that into there and then plug that into there. So now we've got inputs, and the good thing about this, because our whole material layer is going to use the same UVs, we can just essentially go ahead and plug that into all of them, like so. So we're just dragging each one in, and then we'll grab the distance far for our normals, do that as well. And we'll do it also for the height. So we'll organise this up a little bit more because I'm not too keen about spaghetti junction. What I'm going to do is duplicate this. So I'm going to get rid of the 1 on the end. If I'm going too quick, guys, I'm sorry about that. I just don't want this to be like hours long. So I apologise if I'm going too quick, but I am trying to explain what I'm doing as well at the same time. So I've got textures. What I want to do here is capitals, material, UVs. Like so. And we're going to start this set priority at 10. So we'll do a 10 here. We can go into here, and then from the material far, I'm going to do a set priority of 11, and then 12 for the mid, and 13 for the near. Hopefully you can quite grasp what's going on here, guys. We're setting this up in such a way where they're all going to be in order. And this is just material UVs. Like so. The font size 25, and we'll just give this a random colour. Like so. Let's make sure these boxes are the same size. We're symmetrical, guys. And then we'll do that. Okay. So that is that done. I'm going to move these up to come in line more with our UVs, because what I like to do with this is, because this is very much spaghetti junction, I do like to arrange these a little bit better. So what I'm going to do is drag off, well, I'm going to double click on one of these noodles, like so, and create what's called a reroute pin. Very useful, and just put it there, one more higher. Then I'm going to get my mid, double click on the mid, put that there as well. And then the same with the near. We're going to drag that and put that there. Maybe a little bit too close together. This has to be right. Hang on a minute. And essentially what we can do, because imagine this output for this function is one of these pins, we're essentially extending the range of this output. So with this now I can just simply come and drag in each one of these like this, and it's just going to clean up our noodle graph a little bit. It's already in there, in the mid, and the mid. Then we've got our near, it's already in there. I don't know why I did it, I fell for that. I didn't fall for it last time though. And then our near, and then our near. So essentially what's gone on here, if I arrange these a little bit better, straighten that out a bit. Like so. And that one's fine. So, as you can see here, our complete noodle graph has just gone into this little section here rather than having them swinging out all over the place. A bit like these material layers, but we'll sort them out now. So I'm going to come to here, drag this across, as simple as that. And then I'll come to the roughness section, double click, drag and reroute. And this better organise it. You can use, for right click, reroutes. You can add a named declaration reroute node, and I'll blah, blah, blah. Essentially, these are very good for cleaning up graphs. For creating material layers and landscape layers and all this good stuff, I kind of don't agree with reroute nodes. And essentially what I mean by that is, from here now, I can see exactly that my material albedo texture is going straight into there. And I can see this is going into there. If I had this material function, reroute node there, and say my things are all the way up here, then even though if you build it yourself, wait, I've got to line these back up now. Come on, Kirk, why have you done this? Let's go about here. So essentially, I could have that reroute node sending information somewhere, but I don't know where it is. So I would see here that this is a material albedo texture, and I could use this multiple places throughout the master material, but I prefer a visual effect so I can see where the noodle is going, even though I've tidied it up a little bit. And like here you'd think, well, you can't see that properly, but you can. I know exactly where it's going. If you want to use a reroute declaration node, be my guest. This is just my personal preference. I have used them in the past on previous material layers, and it will come to a point of where if you're building a shader up that's pretty complex, like glass maybe, or a water system or something like that, then using reroute nodes is probably not a good idea. So I just stay clear of them. I can clearly see what's going on if I have to debug in this material layer. I just thought I'd throw that one out there, guys. Okay, so I'm going to drag this there, and then drag that there. Okay, so as you can see now, we've got a little bit more neat and tidy. I'm going to move them in a little bit, like so. So now, up to now, we have our texture set up, inputs, and our material UVs. That's exactly what we want. So what I do want to do now is to create our albedo section. And what I want to start with is our color tint. So what I'm going to do, how shall I do this? So generally, you'd get a multiply, and then get a vector 3 and state what color tint you want, but I want it to kind of blend pretty well with our albedo texture. So what I'm going to do is use a new function I've never used before. Well, I have used it, but I've not used it on this channel. So we're going to get what's called a blend overlay. I'm going to use this blend overlay. This is a Unreal function, so you should have it. And essentially what I want to do is, in here we're going to create a vector tree. I'll get a function input and it'll be a vector tree. And we're going to call this material, oh, if you spell it right, material color overlay. Right, so now we've got our material color overlay. And what I want to do is to be able to control the intensity of this material color overlay with how can we do this? And we'll get a lerp. If I hold L on the keyboard and left click, I'm going to get a lerp. And I hope this works. We'll drag that into there. We're going to blend with our albedo. Instead of what we're essentially doing here is we're blending our color tint with the albedo. Instead of using a multiplier where we're multiplying our color tint on top of our albedo, we're going to blend it together, and this will also give me the ability to another function input. And what I could do with this is call it material color overlay intensity. There we go. We can essentially do that. Now what I need to do is drag these. I want these here. Now we don't like how that looks for the noodles, but we'll sort that out a little bit later on. So that's our colour tint essentially. And what I am going to do actually, I'm going to drag that down a bit. I'll just sort them out as I go, I think, guys. Just drag it there. What shall I do with this? I'll do the same thing. Let's get a noodle. Plop that right about there. Get another reroute pin. This is what I like to do, guys. I like to be organised so I can clearly see what's going on. The best thing about doing this, if I go onto here, it'll highlight that white line of where that noodle's going. I can see it's coming from the material function input, or the function input, yeah. It goes up there, so I can go to that next pin and it's essentially showing me where that's going. You can do the same for all these noodles and it'll show, like if I go to this, and it'll clearly highlight where that's going. As you can see, it's going into that texture input there. And there's another little tip for you guys. Okay, let's drag this in a bit and we'll get it into that bit of a noodle mess there. We'll keep that noodle mess to a minimum. We don't want to do that. Highlight it and get that in there. There we go. Very nice. Very nice. Anyway, what should we get after this? How should we do this? So with keeping this in mind, blend overlay, what I want to do is essentially blend our colour tinting with our albedo, but I'm going to use the height as well. I'm going to bring our height into the albedo. And the reason I'm going to bring that height in here is I want to control our contrast. Let me think. I'm thinking, I don't know why I don't rehearse videos, I really don't. Maybe I just don't have time. Normally we would get a cheap contrast to control the amount of albedo, the amount of contrast we want. But I kind of want this to blend with our albedo based on height. So I want our contrast to blend with the colour based on height. So I'm going to delete that cheap contrast. I'm going to get a contrast, but you can get the RGB version. I'm going to get this RGB version and I'm just going to drag off our lerp into the in pin. I don't want to change this, so I'm just going to leave a value of, yeah, I'll leave it at 1. So essentially I'm adding contrast with our colour here. I'm just trying to think how we're going to do this. So right click and we'll get a new function. That's an Unreal function. It's called a height lerp. Shall we do this? We'll go straight from the lerp into the A. We'll get the RGB into there. Is this going to work? Fucking hell, yeah. Should work this. Okay, so, like I say, I want to blend our contrast in with our RGB. So I've got a cheap contrast with an RGB there. I'm going to drag that up there. Right, so, and transition fade, we'll get an input, a function input, and this is going to be our contrast. So, sorry guys, I went a little quick there, it's because I'm thinking at the same time. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the transition fade to control the amount of contrast we have. So function input, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to call this material contrast. Now, I'm not 100% sure how this is going to work out, guys, so we may have to come back in and change it. I'm just thinking, well, not thinking, I'm hoping this will work. What I'm going to do, I'm going to just arrange, I'm not going to arrange the noodle graph just yet, because I want to make sure it works. But the best thing about this is, I'm giving us the opportunity to blend our contrast in with the albedo based off a height texture, and we can simply just, this distant mask here, as you can see, material height texture, this is going to be our height. I go there, you can see clearly where that's going. I'm just going to drag off there and put that into our height texture, and essentially now we have our height texture. But let me think. For this, I'm going to drag off here this height map and get what's called a component mask. And I just want to specify to this component mask that I want to use the blue channel. Is it blue channel? No, we'll go with red channel. And we just want to use the red channel for our height texture there. Okay, but I'll put this a bit down, or a bit up actually. Like so. Okay, I'm hoping this will work. We'll drag the contrast down here. I may just, I've got a good feeling it'll work, guys, so I'm just gonna put the reroutes in now, the reroute nodes, pins, that's not symmetrical, like so. Let's hope and pray this works. I'm just going to arrange this up a little bit. Put this in with our noodle mess there. Another reroute node. Put that in about there, like so. We'll get a pin on here. We'll do that like so. Okay, so what I want to do now is to set. I'm going to set material attributes. And essentially what this set material attributes is, if I right click and make material attributes, this make material attributes and the set material attributes are exactly the same. The only difference is that all these are already exposed, whereas with the set material attributes, I can click on the set material attributes and click the plus, the array elements, and just add one, and you can see it gives me a base color. And as you guys know, we've got the base color, the albedo, the roughness, the normal, and the height. So I'm going to add 3 more, like so. I'm going to go roughness, what did I say, normal, and height. I'm not going to use world position offset. I may use that at a different stage down the line in the shader. So what I am actually going to use with this is opacity. And essentially what I want to do is to put my alpha into base. No, I definitely don't want to put the alpha in. The alpha is already getting the red channel. No, don't save anything. So I'm going to use the results and put that into base color. I can actually get rid of make material attributes now, and I can just simply put that into the output of our material layer. Okay, as you can see, we're getting our texture on there. You can see we're using the default texture, which is this. Don't know who in the right mind will come up with that kind of texture, but it's quite common in Unreal Engine. But as you can see, we're not getting normal values, but we can sort that out a little bit later on. I'm just hoping this works, guys, otherwise I'll look silly by the end of this video. Roughness. Roughness quite simple. There's two types of roughness you can do. You can just go straight in for a multiply. Oh, I spelt it right. You can go in for a multiply right there and just add a value here. I drag that in there, put that into the output. You can see now our texture is very shiny for our roughness value, like so. You could just put a value of 1 in there, like so, and you'll see that shininess has really gone. But I'm still getting a bit of reflectivity, but I'll sort that out towards the end of when we build this logic up. This is getting quite long, this video, but I did state that at the beginning. Shall I use multiply, or like I was saying, you could use a lerp and just drag off into the alpha of our lerp and set values. We use 2. You could set a min and a max. I have showcased this on the channel before, and then you can see we've gone like a sphere. If I increase this to say the minimum to 0.5, it's going to add a little bit of roughness there. And then if I set the maximum to 1, so essentially what I'm doing is setting our roughness in the range of 0 to 1, 0.5 to 1. You can do that. As you can see, you get a nice little result from that. Kind of like a, not so much plasticky, but you can reduce that to a 0.2, and it'll just add a little bit more shine back. But it's a lot of messing about, a lot of calculations just for roughness. So I'm going to use the multiply like so. I'm going to drag off here and get another function input. And with this, we're going to call it material roughness intensity, like so. And that was very easy done. So we're just going to use the multiply, like I say, guys. I'm going to fire this down there. I'm going to keep the constant 1 vector in there because we are going to use it. I'm going to organise this up a little bit. Give ourselves something nice to look at. And then I'm just going to drag this over like so. That's very lined up symmetrically. We'll drag that down to here. And then we'll get this, drag it into there, like so. Okay, so we're getting a little bit neater and tidier now. Could essentially drag these over. I'm getting a little bit obsessed with this now. Okay, so that's our roughness. What I want to do now is to create some normals. So I'm going to drag off our normal. So you could get a flattened normal. Let's think of a new way. I always use flattened normals and they don't give the best details. Because all you're getting, you're basing your normal. So essentially this is where your input for the normal comes, and this is what's called a fake input. So, well, not a fake input, it's a fake normal. So it's essentially just a blue, it's just a blue. And this is the amount of flatness you can have. So when I decrease this value, it's using the A input of the lerp, and then when I increase the flatness value on the alpha, it's increasing it and going more flat because this is just a flattened normal, if that makes sense. So this flatness value, at 0 it uses the A input, and at 1 it uses the B input. Now you could traverse this, like swap them around and change it from normal, whatever and all that good stuff, but I'm going to do it a different way in this material layer. I'm going to use what's called a multiply add Oh, is it multiply add? Yeah, it is multiply. There it is, multiply add. And this essentially is kind of the same thing, but I'm multiplying and adding these values together. So I'm going to multiply, yeah, that's right. So what I'm going to do, now this needs to be a vector 2. Oh no, it needs to be a vector 3. Okay, so I'll get an append. We'll get an append vector. If you didn't see that, sorry guys. Append v, and you'll see we get an append vector. So we do need another one as well. So because this is a vector 3 input and I want to use a scalar parameter, I'm going to append it into there. So this is like a vector 2 now. But if I get this constant 1 vector and duplicate it, we'll change the value to 0. That's just telling this that we're not using the third vector. And then we could just get a function input. I've seen this before, this kind of. Where did I learn this? I forget now. What we'll call this is material normal intensity. Like so. And that could just be a scalar parameter into that append like that. I shall throw that over here. Like so. Sort our reroutes out. Don't worry about the second noodle, we'll just deal with that shortly. That looks about right there for me. I'll duplicate this reroute node, and that's gone straight where I wanted it. It's not quite how I like it, so I'll move that append down one, and then just follow these along. And that's fine like that. Okay, so as you can see, because we're using the append, we're getting that extra noodle. But similar to the distant UVs, you can use a reroute pin in there, and which you could just simply drag into the A, like so. And there we go. And I'm going to use this functionality for my normals. Ooh, not symmetrical. Okay. I'll use that for the normals. Let's see what happens here. Yeah, that's about right. Let's give it a value. If I'd use that one value, there's something else throwing it off, but never mind. We'll work it out. Okay, so last but not least, we are going to use our height. With height, you just get a power, but essentially with our height texture, what I'm using the height texture for is to just, it's for blending purposes. So down the line we could control these parameters to control the amount of blending and the sharpness and fall off between layers. When you do it this way you can anyway. So I'm going to utilize this height texture for primarily the puddles, and it'll enable our puddle function to work off this height texture. So when I apply the puddles down, it'll intertwine with the height of whichever material layer we're using. It's hard to explain a little bit, but again, we're essentially creating 3 stages of the height. We're going to create a power, which essentially is the contrast, and then the intensity, which is with a multiply. If I get a multiply here, you can search for multiply, which is there, or you can just press M on the keyboard and hold M down on the keyboard and left click, it'll get you a multiply. I also want a add node, so if I hold A down on the keyboard and left click, we'll get an add node. So essentially what I'm going to do, I'm going to control the intensity, control the contrast of our height, and the add node is to add a little bit of extra power in if we need it. So I'm going to drag off our height output into the power node. Just align these up, you know what I'm like, guys. and then we've got our multiply and our add. No, I'll indicate that towards the end. Right, okay. Let's get a input function, or function input if you like. We're going to change the name. All these can be scalar parameters. So material height. I'll leave it at there for 1 second, and then I'll duplicate this another 2 times. Like so. And for this one, I'm going to change this to contrast. Okay, and this could be our intensity. We get on the end of there, delete intensity, like so, and this could be our multiplier, if you like. No, I can't call it multiplier. That's being incorrect. I'll just call it add. Yeah, add. There you go. So essentially now I've got these inputs. Like I stated a little bit earlier on, these are going to control our blending between the layers. And the good thing about this, I can just grab these and put these straight there. And now I need to sort these noodles out dead quickly. Well, as quick as I can. We'll just move this out of the way. Like so. Okay. End of the day, I know it takes some time to get this arrangement right, but look at it, it looks a lot better than it would generally. We'll move that up there as well. Just going to close these in a little bit more, like so. Can't live with that. So I'm going to drag this along. So, drag this one along as well. And now I can clearly see what's going on there. Like so. Okay, that's our height. Hopefully this height works. We'll drag that 1 down because I know the roughness intensity wants to be 1. The normal intensity wants to be a 1. This is just precautionary measures. You don't have to do this. And then my contrast is going to be set to 1 and my intensity is going to be set to 1. But this is going to be a 0. So I could duplicate this 0 vector that we created before and plug this in here. And this is going to enable us to use this 0 vector wherever we want to. Like so. If we need to as well. And then essentially I'm just going to drag this out all the way into our opacity. Like so. This output result is going to be called material. And I also want to expose my height. Now there's a Discord at the minute. It's another YouTuber's Discord. It's called Cold Wave, if I remember. Essentially CG dealers. And there's a lot of folk asking in there why this and that about the height. Oh, that was it, paint layers. Why they can't utilise paint layers properly and all this. So this is how you would do this. To utilise, if I go to my master material layer, and right click, landscape, this is what we are going to be using. Landscape layer blend. And for each material layer you want, you can add this in here. So for this, maybe I'm going to call grass. And what you can do, what's best, especially with the way we're doing it, is go into your height blend. And you can see there with a layer grass, it creates a height input. This is very important for the actual shader, what we're using, for our height blend to work properly. So what is good to do on your master material layer is to expose the height. Now you could simply drag off here and get an input, which is great. But what I like to do is outside of here, In fact, I'll just no, I'll do it outside of here. I'll do it in the actual parameters section actually. But what I'm essentially going to do is expose our height for this to run correctly. I know what I mean anyway, but you'll see shortly. Okay, so that there, guys, is the logic. That's the kind of logic I'm going to want to use for now. It's going to be okay for now, but I may want to come here and change, like if the height lerp technique doesn't work. I've seen it somewhere else, but I can't think where I've seen it. And I did utilise it at one point, but I can't remember why or how it worked out. We're going back some time. But I want to see how this height lerp works with the contrast and the blend overlay as well. I'm going to see how this functions properly. I may just come back and use a flat and normal node, but this is a major thing when creating a material shader. That's not lined up correctly. That'll do. It's all about experimentation. It's always good to just get a random material and just experiment with all these nodes to build something up. That's in my eyes quite important. But anyway, so we're going to hit apply with there. Let's hope nothing breaks. Oh wait there, I need to set these up, don't I? I'm actually I think just cover these first. We're going to call this material options. Change the font to 25. Choose a random colour. Let's give it this pinky purple colour. We'll just get it the same size as the rest of our stuff. So it looks nice and neat and tidy. Like so. Let's move these. We're going to move it down a little bit. Obviously it's going to send them out of alignment, but don't panic. We can just essentially just grab these as well and move these down with them. Like so. Okay, the reason I've done that is because we need a separator, so we're going to highlight this one for the material UVs and just control the D, duplicate it. And the reason I've used material UVs is because all I have to do is change the UVs to options, like so. This one was set to 10, the last one was 13. I'm going to give myself some more leeway and set this priority to 20, and that's just in case I need to come in here and add additional stuff. In future videos on this channel, guys, I'm going to be adding additional stuff actually, so it's a good practice to do this. I'm going to want some sort of triplanar projection. I'm going to want some sort of texture breakup for the texture repetition, in which we could utilize the UVs on our near and possibly mid. So yeah, I'll set the material options to 20. And then we just do like before, we follow on. So for material color overlay, set 21. Overlay intensity is 22. And we're just going to go down actually like this because we're all in a good order. 23, wait there, 23, 24, 25, and then 26, 27. Oh yeah, listen, not this. Okay, so we're going to hit apply there, and I'm just hoping this all works because I will look silly if it doesn't. I'm actually just going to delete them. That's really majorly important. You can see it's getting a weird effect there, but that's because there's no values in there. Don't worry about that. Okay, so I think will that do? Let's go and test it out. So what I'm gonna do is come to my landscape shader, layers, master. You can see I've got my master logic all set up. You can tell it looks fairly similar to that. I'm just going to open this master layer. We'll close that stats bar down and then just drag this in here like so. Okay, so as you can see on our material master logic, we've got our set up here, we've got our textures, the albedo, roughness, normal and height, the UVs and the options all set up and ready to go. So like I was saying before, I'm going to change this name to, let's get rid of the capitals, material. That's going to be a set priority of 0. I'm going to drag out of here and get material attributes. And what I want to do in our logic, if we go back to our logic, we put our height into the opacity. So I'm setting our opacity as the height input in our material. So outside of this function, I'm going to get our material information, which I want to add in as opacity, like so. Now I've added the opacity, I want to add this to a output node. So I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to call this height. And essentially what I'm doing, I'm going to change the set priority to 1. So this one is first outside of this function and this one's second. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm exposing the height outside of our function. Let me go back to logic in a minute. So I'm grabbing the red channel into the height texture. So I'm going to do that here. I'm going to drag off our opacity, get a component mask. I'm going to indicate the red channel again and just plug that into there. Like so. Right, so that is done. Nothing's showing up there. That's because we've got no values. Okay, so this is now the monotonous part, guys. I'm not going to lie to you. This is where we've got to set up all our parameters, but I'm going to do it in detail, guys. I'm going to tell you the best I can what information I have. Okay, so I'm going to start with the material albedo texture. We can simply just right click on there and promote to a parameter. Oh, that didn't work out as planned. I hit a wrong key. I'm going to right click and promote to parameter, and you'll see it'll spawn this material albedo texture parameter in here, which got the T2D on the end. To get rid of that, you'll see it's all highlighted in blue like it would be on, you know, like Word or anything like that anywhere. To get rid of that highlight and not delete it all, just press the right arrow on your keyboard and it'll get rid of all that blue. And then we're going to delete the brackets with T2D in it. And then we've got material albedo texture as our parameters. And essentially what we're going to do is do that for the rest of them. So promote to parameter, right arrow, delete the T2D in brackets, and then just drag this up a little bit. And right click, promote to parameter, and then T2D. And this is why I have used in the master logic function, save that. That's why I've used these kind of inputs with material and with the specific names that they want to, which they are aligned with. And that's because I could just come in here and right click, promote to parameter, and there we go. And now that's the texture cell. What I want to do is to set a group up for these textures. Now these are going to be named retrospectively. So in the details panel here, we've got multiple values. You can't change the actual parameter names on a global scale if you like, so it'll just say multiple values. You can change it if you want, but it's just not going to be good. In the group here, I want to assign, if you like, a group. So I'm just going to start with material and then textures, like so. And now I've done that, all these four are in the same group. And now all I need to do, like the material functions, is set the priority. So this one can be a 1, the roughness can be 2, and the normal can be 3, and the height can be 4. Now once you've done that and hit apply, where the details panel is here, you've got a parameters section. And this is going to show you how your parameters are going to look inside your material instance, which I think is quite cool. So if you're ever wondering, like you can see here, the distant range from camera, that is all the way down in our distant mask, which is here. These are them functions there, you can see them here. The reason I've left these in here like this is because every time I use this function within this master logic, all these here are set to the same input, and that's so I can control the distance from the camera. Like I covered this a couple of videos ago, or last video should I say. I could control our distant tiling, mid tiling and near tiling, the distance and the blend on a global scale throughout the entire material layers, and that's why I would set that up inside of the logic. Setting it up this way like we're doing it in today's video is just so we can change this for each material layer, but the distant logic will remain the same for every single material layer we create, which is cool. So I'm going to highlight our textures, press C, and we're going to call this material textures, like so. Change the font size to 25 and set this to like a pinkish colour, like so. One more thing about these comment box guys, which I will showcase. If you click on your comment box and come to the colour, if you don't like it like this, you could come to the colour picker, like so, and the alpha right at the bottom, if you drag that all the way down, it'll just do it like that. So now you just have this one bar at the top, which is quite cool. I just thought I'd showcase that now, but I prefer it with it there. That's just like personal preference if you want it that way. Okay, so material distance UV's far, we can right click and do the same as before. See, now this is a good one. It's brought up a vector 2, which is quite funny. I don't want to use vector 2s, even though the input has to be a vector 2 because UVs are vector 2s, you can still use scalar parameters. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy that name, like that, left control and C. I could delete that parameter. I'm going to hold S on the keyboard and left click, get a scalar parameter, and then left control and V. I've got my material distance UV far. Yeah, can leave that like that, and then just duplicate this more, and then I can just come in here and change the far, just like we did with the inputs a little bit earlier on. And just change this to mid, like so, just like we did with the inputs, as you can see. But if you right click and promote to a parameter, it'll try and spawn a vector 2 parameter, but we just need a scalar parameter, and then near, like so. Okay, so that is done. We can essentially just drag these in here, even though it doesn't complain, as you can see. Don't complain about it. Just like sort of cry sometimes. I don't know what I'm talking about there, guys. Okay, so material UVs, like so. 25 for the font size, and we're going to go for a greenish colour here. A little bit bigger. There we go. Okay, so now we've done that, what I am going to do is set the group up, and this is going to be called material UVs, just like so. And we can set priority, so 1, 2, 3. Keep in mind, guys, you don't have to do it in this order. You could essentially have your textures at the bottom if you want. You can have them in any particular order that you want. This is just how I like to do it. Okay, so now we've got to do this for the rest of them, these options. So right click, promote to a parameter, which is a vector 3, and then we're going to get rid of the brackets with V3 inside there. Just drag this over here like this for now. right click, promote to parameter, and then do this, so, and then contrast, like this, there we go, and then promote to parameter for the material roughness intensity, like this. We're going to sort this out. I just want to do it by the screens here because for some reason the parameters always spawn here. I don't know why. That's that one, and then we could do this material height contrast, and then material height intensity. Right, so one more, which is our height add. Promote to parameter, and then get rid of the S in there. And what I am going to do, guys, is I'm going to apply this and save it. I'm going to come back to my main window. I'm just going to come, oh, it's all saved, that's great. Okay, that's that, I'll keep that open for now. Okay, so now we've got our parameters in here. Let's go ahead and just sort these out so they're all right. Let's grab them. Do this. Do this. Let's go Shift A and align them all together. Let's group them up a little bit, like so. Like so. Just plop that right on top, like so. There we go. Drag that over here. Drag it down a little bit. And then press C, and we can call this material options. A font size of 25. We'll just give this a reddish. We've already got a reddish pinkish colour. We'll go for yellow. Okay. There we go. Right. So now we've got our texture inputs, our material UVs, and our material options. What's good, what we need to do now actually is set the group, call this material options. Now essentially with all these, like I stated a little bit ago, you don't have to have them in this order where I've got my UVs far 1, 2 and 3 retrospectively, and then this order you can put them in any order you want. You might want your height controls at the top, so you would start with your height controls being a set priority of 1. Wherever your numeral assignment goes for these scalar parameters is the order they will show up in the scalar, in the parameters. Keep in mind you can go into your parameters and check all this out, like so. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep them in order. So I'm going to go for a 1 with the colour overlay. Material colour intensity is going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, ooh, 6, 7, and finally 8. We'll grab all these, Shift and A. It was all naughty then and unaligned out. Okay, so the good thing about doing this now is we can actually set up some defaults for here. Now for the texture, I'm going to come to my landscape shader, no landscape, Build Worlds V2, landscape, and where are my textures? Oh wait there, they might just be the megascans, surfaces. We could use, I don't want to, I'm not set up, I've not set this up in a way to use megascans. Where am I using that other one from though? So if I come to my layer, click on this, oh, it's in the colour, in the textures. What I am going to do is import some textures I already have. So Build Worlds V2, landscape, landscape shader, alpha brushes. I'm going to right click in here and go textures. Right, so I've got a new folder now for textures. I'm going to right click and new folder and call this grass. Underscore A. Because in this shader I plan to use multiple versions of grass. So I'm going to double click on here, right click and import. As you can see, I've already got a load of textures here set up, Quixel textures. These are all set up the way I like it. What's this? There we go. Oh, that was a little bit slow. No, let's not use that. We'll just use the forest floor. Do I like that? No, I need grass because I've named the folder grass. Okay, so mossy grass, we'll just use this. So I want the albedo, this height map, normal and roughness, sometimes they're called displacement. Just click open. We'll get these inside our project. Okay, so what we need to check now is that they are the right scale. These are 2K textures. Yeah. Always come into your normal map. You can see mine as imported as a normal map. If you've imported it and it's set to default, you would need to change this to normal map. So I'll point that out, guys. And now we're just going to use these in our defaults here. We'll drag this out. What we need is, the first one's albedo, so I'm going to click on my albedo texture, make sure I'm clicked on my material albedo texture, and just click this little use selected asset from content browser, just click that and it'll add that grass into there, like so. Roughness, same thing, click on roughness and drag it into there, and then normal, click on your normal and drag that into there. Height as well, which is the displacement texture. Okay, so as you can see, it's not looking very brave at the minute. That's because all our values here are set to 0. So off the top of my head, well, I say off the top of my head, I know these values. For the UVs near, I'm going to start at around 1600. Yes, you did hear me right, 1600. The second one is going to be about 900 for the mid, and for the far we're going to use something like 250. These are not permanent values, guys. We will be testing them. That's that. And then for material color overlay, I just want this to be set as a default of white. So from the red, green and blue channels, just set all these values to 1 and it'll set it to white as a default. That means it'll prioritize the texture color over the color tint. Material color overlay, we can set this to 0.1, and then for the minimum, you'll see me doing this a lot, 0.1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros and a 1, and that's the absolute minimum value you can use, and then for a maximum of 1.5. What I'm doing here essentially, if I come to my parameters, the material color overlay, I'm setting the minimum and maximum of the values there, which is great. And so we want this 0.1 like so, and that's that set up. Material contrast 0.0002 and then 0.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, and then we'll do a 1.5 for that maximum. You'll never need to go over 1, but it's always good to give yourself that leeway for debugging. Roughness intensity, we'll go for a 0.8 to start with, and then 0.1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 1, and the maximum can be 1.5 as well. And then normal intensity, I'm going to start this with a 0.8 as well, 0.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, and 1. Actually, no, for this particular kind of height thing, we're going to go for a 2 as a maximum. You should never use a 2, but like I say, give yourself that option. Okay, so material height contrast, we're going to set to a 0.85, 0.12345, 1. We'll go for a 1.5 for that as well. We'll do the same for this, 0.85, 0.12345, 1, and a 1.5. Add height, and this is like a bonus feature if you like, so I'm just going to go 0.0001, and then 0.12345, and then 1.5 for that. Okay, so now we've got ourselves some default values set up. How about we go and try this? We're going to save it there, master layer, master logic. We'll leave them open just in case these things don't work out what our plans for. That should be alright. Save material. Actually with this we can just delete that. Actually we can use this, and what I want to do is to change this input or output to a use material attribute. So highlight it all, check use material attributes, and essentially what that's done is crammed all that information into one output, because all that information, what goes in there, is set within our master logic, which is here, and so we don't need it there. Cannot connect a non-material attribute node to a material attribute pin. Well, you can bugger off. Okay, so let's get our master. Landscape shader, layers, master. We'll just drag that master into there now. Just plug that in there. Like so. And there we go. Let's hit apply and hope for the best. Come back to our world. You can see it's completely black. That's completely normal. This is because we have not assigned any landscape layer infos. This is quite an important part, guys, to do this. Let's just save what we've done so far. Right, so let's hard save everything as well. These are the textures we just imported, so let's just hard save them. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to recent levels, and we'll just reset this. Just dead quick, and then we'll just file, recent levels, and build worlds, B1 or B2. Don't worry about these warnings, these are just about the proxies because they're not highlighted. Blah 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 blah. Oh, it didn't save our bookmark. How rude. Let's just speed this up a little bit. Right, so let's click on our money. Well, let's see, environment and F. Hold left alt and left click on the mouse to rotate around particular objects. We'll zoom out. Let's drop this down, We don't need money anymore. What we need to do now we've reset what we've done, we can come to the landscaping mode. This is quite important if you've applied a new landscape. This is quite important. So as you can see here, we've got this. We just need to add in a layer info. As you can see, we've not got one. So I'm going to hit this little plus, create layer info, weight blended layer. And it'll automatically find a folder. You can see mine's gone to my important folder and into that shared assets for this particular level. But click OK and let create it. You can see it's shown us where this is created right there. Okay, so as you can see, it doesn't look great. I'm way too quick still. Let's just slow this down a little bit. There we go. Let's go back from there to 4, and now we're nice. So as you can see, like I say, we're not really getting a good result from that. So what we need to do, guys, is come to our Build World Z2 landscape, landscape shading. You want to open your material instance, like so. Okay, let's see if we could change some of these values. So we can find out and see what is going on right here. Let's just highlight these. Let's have a play about. Find out what's going on. Let's just reset our distance. See, that intensity is working correctly. Material contrast. Yeah, the contrast works really nice, but there's no height information just yet. Roughness. Oh yeah, roughness works. I'm not getting a good result here. This could possibly be because of the UVs. The height contrast. We're not going to really see much results from this just yet until we're blending them together. Let's just scale this down a bit. Start with 1, 5, do 5, 10, 50, 500, 500. Is there something I have missed out, guys? Let's have a look here. Okay, so I have just cut the video short. Pardon me. As you've seen just then, guys, that I was struggling to work out what the issue was and why I couldn't get any good results from my textures. Now, I'm not going to beat around the bush, guys. That was fairly embarrassing for me, especially now I've worked out what the issue is. It's something so simple that it's just amazing. It's just amazing how simple it is, but I've missed it out. Now, it's a very integral part to the way UVs work in the scene. As you can see here, I've just spent literally the last 10 minutes in between the cuts in the video. I've just spent the last 10 minutes trying to work out what the issue is, and at some point I was actually getting a little bit stressed out, but it's something so simple it's untrue, and I really am kicking myself since I've worked out what the problem is. So as you can see, we've created all our logic here. It's all set up and ready to go, and it is working. There's a good side to it. Oh, let me put my thing back there to my metallic and specular. Now there's one key component missing to our UVs for this shebang. If I come into my distant mask and then go straight into the texture set blending, you can see I've got my UVs going straight into the texture samples. I've got my UVs going straight into the actual set blending, and then my logic into here, into the distant UVs, what we've created today. There's one key component that we've really missed out, and the best thing about it is at the start of the video we had the logic there, but I've just since forgot about it and not added it in. And I'll just showcase now what it is. So if I get a multiply, in fact, I'm not going to use multiply, I'm going to use divide. Divide node allows us to keep low values at the near and high values at the far, just to essentially inverse it. So I'm going to duplicate that 3 times, and the one thing we're missing is the actual coordinates. So landscape layer coordinate nodes. Now what we have to do is come back to our project, our scene, click on our landscape and go to the details panel, and you'll see our overall resolution is 4033 by 4033. So in our distant mask, if we come back into here, in the landscape layer coords node in the mapping scale, we need to set 4033. I cannot believe it. In a video, whilst recording as well, it's very embarrassing for someone who's been using Unreal Engine for so long. It's really embarrassing, guys. But you know what? We live and we learn, don't we? We live and we get on with it. Something we learn, and then we're just going to drag our inputs for our distant UVs into the divides. The way I'm doing this is if I come back into the master logic like we've been doing today in today's video, you can see I've got my distant mask logic here. If we double click and open that, we'll get into this section here. If you've been following along for the whole series, then you should have the same kind of settings as this. If you haven't and you're just doing it here, then feel free to add your multipliers or divides here and copy along what I'm doing. And then we're just going to drag these into each of these corresponding inputs for our texture set blending. Now, looking a little scruffy, but there's not much I can do about that. Just the situation we're in at the minute. And if I bring this up a little bit, drag that into there, I can double click on that and get that reroute pin again. Just assign these into there, just to tidy it up a little bit more. Let's get the whole shebang. But I'll tell you what, we'll just leave it like this. You can clearly see what's going on. Okay, if I hit apply, and this is the power of functions here, I've hit apply now, and it's going to apply this logic to the rest of our master material layer. And this is the powerful side of using material functions, especially when you're deriving from that master material logic thing. Okay, so now that's compiled, I'm going to save my distant mask, and all that logic we created is going to be in each of these. I'm going to hit apply there. That was surely stressing me out, guys, at some point, but luckily I stopped recording and then started re-recording. So I apologise for the interruptions in this video, and I apologise for how long the video is, but I feel I've given a proper detailed tutorial on creating a material layer, which is great, I think. And then we've got a look now. I still can't believe that I've, something so simple. And there, we've got our layer blend into there, and then all this shebang. I come back to build worlds now. You can see that it's not quite right. So if I reset these back to 0, there we go, guys. We're going to need really terrifyingly small numbers here. So 0.0026. And then after that we can go 0.026. We can clearly see that, so I may go a little bit higher, so 0.0059, maybe 69, 0.0069, and we're just keeping these low values, which is great. I could just do a 1 for the back, no, 0.1, yeah, 0.1 seems alright, and it's just essentially with the divide node we're keeping low values, and with the multiply nodes we would need to have large values. So that's down to you whether you want to do it that way. Okay, but as it stands, guys, after such a long video, and I'm impressed and happy that you've stuck around till the end to create this master material layer. Let's go and test some of these. So add distant tiling, we can clearly see that's working. You can see the sharp line here. Ooh. Yeah, you can see the line there. Our distant tile is definitely working. We don't need to play about with that. What I want to do is material color overlay intensity. If I increase that, you can see it's just getting whiter, and that's great. If I increase this to a red, okay, you can see. But the way I've done it here with the logic, where I've applied using the blend overlay, it's essentially swap them back around. It's essentially blending the colour with the texture instead of just blending it over the top. I can really reduce that, and we can pick any colour we want, like this bright purple, pinky colour. Just apply it. It starts applying the colour over the top, like so. Okay, we're just going to reset them. And then the material contrast, let's increase that. You can see the material contrast is actually blending with the texture as well, which is great. Roughness intensity, you can see this is working. If I really reduce it, actually the roughness intensity is not working. Let's try and add in a little bit there. Let's go back into our logic and have a look at why this would not work. So that's going straight into there. Roughness intensity, it's a scalar parameter, you're using the default there. So this should work, technically speaking. I can't imagine why not. No. Let's just right click and start previewing this node. I'm just gonna, oh no, it should be fine. There will be a good reason as to why that's not working. Lock texture and roughness texture 2D. Roughness intensity is there. So essentially that should be working, but it's not. But we can approach that at another time. There'll be something cancelling that out. Maybe if I just quickly come in here and get rid of the metallic, hit apply. Yeah, the roughness intensity is not having an effect at all. Sorry about the background noise then. The roughness intensity is not having an effect. We'll increase the normal. Yeah, the normal's working fine. That's a nice normal that as well, actually. Doing that way is a nice normal. Let me just have a look at that logic again. Yeah, it seems right. Apply. Let's have a look at this normal intensity. Yeah, it's a nice apply. If you watch, it's blending the normals in instead of just hard coding it in. So if I go 5, 1, 5, 2, 1, 0.1, 0, minus 1. You see that change? 1, minus 1. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 5, 0, 5, 0. Okay, so the normals are fine. I'm happy with them. The roughness isn't, but I'll work that out off camera and I'll notify you soon. Height contrast, you're not going to get much values from this because it's all to do with blending. and we would need another material layer to go with this. So the height isn't a problem just yet. Once we come to the landscape master material and start adding multiple layers here to paint on our landscape, and then here we could have big stripes of different layers, then this material height contrast, material height intensity and material height add will be able to be showcased then. But yeah, I'm happy with what is happening here. Obviously with the blip about something so simple and so, how can I say it, so stupid on my part. I feel the video's been decent. We now have a really nice master material layer for our landscape, and now when we come to our content drawer, we can come into the layers section. We've got our master folder, and if I right click, go new folder, and I could have grass underscore A, let's just say that, and essentially if I open that folder up, I'll come back to layers, sorry, and I'll go to my masters, and I don't want the logic material function, I want the master layer. If I just click on it once, left control and C, and I'm copying that, left control and C, go to my grass A, double click, come into the folder, control and V, dead simple. Yeah, and I've copied this master layer over into my grass A, and then I can just highlight it, click on it, press F2 just to rename it, and then I could keep the layer there and just call this MF grass underscore A underscore layer, like so. Press enter, and now I've got my own grass A master layer. Well, it's not a master layer, it's just its own layer. And essentially what you would do with this, now so I press F2 again, I'm just going to click once and I'm going to highlight grass A like this. I'm just going to go left control and C and copy that. And if I open up this now, I've got this functionality, where is it? The master layer functionality here. But now I've got this. And what I would have to do is come to each of these. This is the monotonous part. And the material word, I would double click it, left control and V, grass A. And then in the group where it says material, double click it, control and V. And I've got my grass A. And I would have to go through each of these. This is the monotonous side. Changing it, control and V, clicking on each word material, control and V. And then I can highlight them all and change the group to grass A textures. And then maybe the UVs, click on that, double click the material, control and V, and essentially what you've got to do is go through it all like this. This is the downside of doing individual material layers. I click on one, double click on the word material, control and V, grass A, highlight them all, change the group, grass A UVs, and essentially when you create this new layer, grass A, and I've got my MF grass A layer, come inside, change all the names from material and the groups to grass A, and then you could come in here, right click, import. I'll go through this next in the next video, and then say I want it's probably, I'll go for long grass, and then I could just click on these textures and just open, and that's going to import them textures into that particular folder. Now we can see here that it's converted to a normal texture in there, and now I've got all my layers, my textures, sorry, yes we know. And then essentially what I do is click the albedo and come to my albedo texture and just simply swap them over like so. The roughness in there, normal goes in there, and the height goes in there like so. And now after you've changed all the names of your material textures and the material UVs and the material options to, like I say, grass A, like so, and the group name to grass A, and you can change all of these to grass A options, like so, and go through and change. All you have to do is click the word, click material, press V, Control V, grass A. Dead simple, dead easy, and that's the power of having a master material layer. Now you could go through here in your layers folder, and you've got a grass A, you could create a grass B, you could have a dirt, a soil, mud, rocks, you know, small rocks, big rocks, and they can all now derive from this master layer. If I click there, press 0 on the end and an underscore, and what that's going to do is going to always ensure that the masters folder is here right at the left hand side. And like I say guys, you could create as many layers as you want, and you'd have to rename them all, like just like I've showcased, and come to your material, and you could essentially get your grass A and drag it in, and you can see we've got an MF grass A layer, and then just add it to your layer blend node there. But I will showcase that more in next week's video, because in next week's video I'm going to showcase downloading the correct textures, because I still might not use these textures yet, and we're going to apply all our material layers onto our layer blend node next week. So if you want to wait for then to follow along what I'm doing, I'm going to create next week all our paint layers, and then after that we are going to start making our blending functions in there. Okay, so that is it for this week's video. I apologise sincerely about the blip in the middle of the video, but you know, this does happen. Obviously something so simple is quite embarrassing, but I'm not particularly that bothered about it. But things like this will happen, and it's always good to try and debug and work out what the problems are and all this good stuff. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button. If you're feeling generous and you're learning a lot from my work, then hit the donation link and send a donation of any value to my way. And I shall see you in the next video, guys. Thank you. Goodbye.